They threw my children's toys into the basement as if they were trash. At first, I thought it was a cruel misunderstanding, some twisted family miscommunication. But then I saw my kids' tear-streaked faces, their small voices whispering, "Grandpa says we're not good enough." My heart cracked, but my smile never wavered. Because in that moment, I knew something they didn't. The game had just begun. My parents thought they had all the power. They had no idea what I was about to unleash, not just for me, but for every scarred child who ever deserved justice. When I first moved back into my parents' house, everything looked like a dream. The walls were lined with family portraits that could have been taken straight from an Instagram lifestyle account. Perfectly curated moments. My father Richard carving a turkey, my mother Elaine setting out crystal glasses, my brother Grant laughing with his son Mason, the so-called golden grandson. It was polished, glossy, too pristine. I told myself it was just pride, parents showing off their family. The first week felt almost comfortable. Elaine posted a TikTok of herself braiding Mason's hair, captioned, "Nothing better than being a grandma." My daughters waved in the background, but Elaine cropped them out before uploading. I noticed, but I let it slide. After all, she had promised. "All our grandchildren are equal here. They'll all be treated the same." I wanted to believe her. Meals looked like magazine spreads: roast chicken, fresh bread, colorful vegetables. My children, Lily and Hannah, sat politely while Mason received the largest portion first. I smiled, convincing myself it was unintentional, that tomorrow would be different. I pitched in with dishes, folded laundry, volunteered to pick Mason up from soccer practice. I thought, maybe if I worked harder, if I showed gratitude, they would see me and my children as part of this family again. But there were signs I couldn't ignore. On the living room wall, every framed photo centered around Mason. His first birthday, his school play, him holding a trophy. When I opened the digital family album on my mother's tablet, I saw group photos where Lily and Hannah had been carefully cropped out, their small faces erased from the memory. My chest tightened, but I forced a breath. Maybe they just picked the best shots. Maybe they didn't notice. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, I borrowed the family laptop to upload some work documents. A folder caught my eye, buried under financial files. Legacy. Mason only. My pulse spiked. I hovered over it, afraid to click. What would I find? Legal documents, financial plans, an inheritance scheme. I closed the laptop with trembling hands. I told myself not tonight. But the unease settled like a stone in my stomach. Days turned into weeks. Mason's birthday arrived. The living room was decked out with balloons, a towering cake, and a brand new electric car wrapped in shiny blue paper. My daughters clapped politely, waiting for their turn. When Elaine handed them their gifts, Lily unwrapped a stack of lined notebooks. "So you can practice writing, sweetheart," she said sweetly, as if it were thoughtful. Hannah received a set of pencils. Their faces fell, but they thanked her quietly. I felt my blood burn. Later, when I pulled Elaine aside, she waved her hand. "Don't be so sensitive, Avery. We love them just as much as Mason." Her voice was sharp, but coated in honey, the same tone she used when I was a child, making me question my own perception. Gaslighting, so subtle, so familiar. I wanted to scream, but instead I smiled tightly and swallowed the rage. Grant joined us, smirking. "Mom and Dad just know where to invest their time. Mason's got real potential. Your girls are sweet, but you can't expect the same." His words sliced deeper than any insult. That night, I tucked Lily and Hannah into bed. We read their favorite story about a fox who outsmarted a wolf, and I exaggerated the funny parts until they giggled. I smiled with them, but when I kissed their foreheads, my throat ached. They deserved so much better. As I scrolled through my phone before sleeping, a notification popped up. Elaine had posted a new photo on Facebook. It was Mason in his shiny new car, grinning ear to ear. The caption read, "Our heir, our pride, our future." She had tagged me, but when I clicked, the tag was gone, deleted, erased, as if my children and I didn't exist in their narrative. I stared at the screen in silence, My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. A whisper escaped my lips. This is only the beginning. It started quietly, almost imperceptibly, like mold growing in the corners of a bright room. On the refrigerator, my mother hung a massive calendar that looked like a battlefield plan. Mason's name filled almost every square: soccer practice, piano recitals, art lessons, weekend trips. Bright-colored stickers highlighted his milestones. My daughter's names appeared only twice, once to mark chores rotation and once for dentist. The difference was brutal. Mason's schedule looked like a path paved with gold. Lily and Hannah's like a footnote. When I asked Elaine why, she smiled with feigned innocence. Your girls don't have as many activities. It's only fair to keep them involved somehow. Helping around the house builds character. From then on, Lily was assigned dishwashing every Monday and Wednesday. Hannah had laundry duty every Friday. Mason's job? To focus on his future. He strutted through the kitchen, untouched, while my girls scrubbed plates with small hands that deserved to be holding crayons instead. One evening, as I walked past the living room, I heard a faint scraping sound. I glanced at the ring cam feed on my phone and froze. There was my mother, in her silk robe, gathering Lily and Hannah's toys into a plastic bin. She tiptoed into the storage room, placing them on a high shelf as if hiding contraband. When I confronted her later, she shook her head. Those toys were cluttering the living room. I was just organizing. But the video told the truth. It wasn't cleaning. It was erasure. The next blow came in the form of a digital wound. My brother had added me by accident to a group chat named Family Council. Messages scrolled across the screen. Richard, we need to make sure the upstairs rooms remain for Mason. He deserves the best space to grow into. Elaine responded with a thumbs-up emoji. Grant chimed in. Avery's kids are fine in the basement if it comes to that. They don't need sunlight for what they do. I stared at the words, my chest tightening until it felt like I couldn't breathe. My daughters weren't children to them. They were placeholders, obstacles. I leaned down that night, kissed Lily's hair, and whispered, I'm thinking of a way out, I promise. But the house had a way of pushing promises to their breaking point. A week later, a crash echoed through the hallway. A priceless ceramic vase lay shattered across the hardwood floor. Grant stormed in, pointing straight at Hannah. She was running around again. I told you she's careless. My daughter's lip trembled, eyes wide with fear. Elaine swooped in, patting Grant's shoulder. She has been clumsy many times. We can't keep replacing valuable things. Her judgment landed like a gavel. Richard folded his arms. We'll introduce a new rule. From now on, anyone who breaks something spends a week sleeping in the basement. Teaches responsibility. I snapped. You can't be serious. They're children, not soldiers in boot camp. You're punishing them for existing. Grant smirked. There she goes again. Avery always making drama. No wonder she can't keep her own life together. The laughter that followed made my skin crawl. That night, after the storm had settled, I sat alone with my journal. My handwriting shook across the page. I will not let them convince my children they are less than anyone. I will not allow this house to teach them shame. The ink smeared where a tear fell, but my resolve hardened. Before bed, I tucked Lily's favorite teddy bear beside her. She smiled sleepily, holding it tight. Hours later, my phone buzzed with a notification. The AirTag I had tucked into that bear's ear sent a location update. The bear was moving, upstairs into Mason's room. I rushed to check, but the room was locked. My stomach churned with dread. They weren't just stealing rooms, memories, or dignity. They were taking even the small comforts my girls clung to. Later that week, curiosity led me back to the family laptop. The folder I had seen before, Legacy, Mason Only, burned in my mind. My finger hovered before I clicked. Inside was a draft of a legal document. The words hit like a knife. Trust beneficiary, Mason Grant Cole. Excluded, for now, Lily Cole, Hannah Cole. My breath stopped. I pressed a hand to my mouth to keep from crying out. This wasn't favoritism. This was erasure, systematic and deliberate. And for the first time, instead of despair, I felt a slow, simmering fire begin to rise. The notification came while I was at work, staring blankly at my computer screen. My phone buzzed with a ping from the AirTag app. Item in motion. Basement. My stomach dropped. I clicked the alert, and there it was. My daughter's personal belongings, their clothes and toys being tracked downstairs. I called home, but no one answered. My hands shook so hard I could barely type a message. When I arrived later that evening, I found Lily and Hannah sitting on the basement steps, their cheeks wet with tears. Their backpacks were shoved into the corner. Lily whispered, "Grandpa said we don't deserve the sunny room, that Mason needs it more because he's special." The words broke something inside me. My father Richard stood calmly in the doorway, arms crossed as if nothing unusual had happened. "Avery, this isn't about favoritism," he said coolly. "Mason needs the right environment to develop. Your girls will manage just fine. They're resilient." I stared at him in disbelief. "They're children, Dad. They need light, love, a space to feel safe, not a basement." His gaze hardened. "This is for the best. You'll see in time." I couldn't breathe. My mother Elaine appeared at his side, nodding as if this decision were final, a decree carved into stone. Later, after tucking my daughters into the narrow beds in the basement, I pulled them outside to the small porch. The night was cool, the stars barely visible through the glow of streetlights. I knelt between them and pointed upward. "Look at that little patch of sky," I said softly. "It's not much, but it's ours. Someday we'll have a bigger piece of it. I promise you." They clung to me, their small arms warm against my sides. For a moment, the ache eased. For a moment, I believed my own words. But when I returned to my room, the fire inside me surged. I whispered under my breath, "Pack your bags." Not for defeat, not for escape, for preparation. A plan was forming. That night, as silence filled the house, despair came for me like a storm. I sat alone at the edge of my bed, guilt gnawing at every thought. How could I have been so naive? How could I let them take everything from my children? A voice inside whispered that maybe I should leave quietly, vanish into another rental, rebuild in anonymity. My girls deserved peace, even if it meant surrender. But then, on my phone, a memory video autoplayed, a clip from when I was 15. Richard held a camcorder, his voice filled with pride. "That's my girl. Avery, the smartest, the brightest. You'll go farther than anyone." I froze. The contradiction between then and now was unbearable. Once, I had been the favored child. Once, I had been the golden one. Now, my daughters were being sacrificed to uphold Mason's throne. The realization hit me. This wasn't just about Mason. It was about control, about power, about rewriting history. And something inside me shifted. I could not remain the girl they manipulated. I could not be the daughter who bowed her head in silence. I was a mother now. My role wasn't to endure, it was to protect. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I'd saved months ago but never had the courage to call, a helpline for parents navigating toxic family dynamics. A calm voice answered. I poured out the story in trembling sentences. They listened, then told me something I had needed to hear all along. "You are not overreacting. This is abuse. Document everything. Set boundaries. Protect your children first." Their words anchored me. For the first time in weeks, I felt less alone. I wrote in my journal, "I will set boundaries. I will collect evidence. I will not let history repeat itself." On my laptop, I created a new folder. I titled it Sunrise Plan. Inside, I began organizing files, screenshots of group chats, ring cam clips, photos of the basement, even recordings of whispered confessions from my daughters. Each file was a piece of truth, a weapon forged from their lies. As the clock ticked past midnight, I closed the laptop with steady hands. For the first time, my despair had turned into resolve. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was the beginning of a war they didn't even know had started. I woke the next morning with a heaviness that no amount of coffee could wash away, but it was no longer the weight of despair. It was steel forming piece by piece inside me. I spent the early hours searching, reading every article I could find about golden child and scapegoat dynamics. Words I had never spoken out loud now had names: triangulation, gaslighting, enmeshment. Each term felt like a puzzle piece clicking into place, confirming what I had endured for decades. This wasn't me being dramatic. This was a system of abuse passed down and dressed as love. I began compiling everything. I scrolled back through Elaine's Facebook timeline, capturing posts where my children were cropped out or erased. I pulled footage from the ring cam of her moving their toys into storage. I screen grabbed the family council chat, each message dripping with favoritism toward Mason. I even saved the inheritance draft that excluded my daughters, labeling it with the date. My laptop became an arsenal, the sunrise plan folder growing heavier every night. Still, I knew I couldn't carry this alone. At night, when the house quieted, I joined online groups for parents and adult children who had broken free from toxic families. For the first time, strangers spoke my language, stories of favoritism, of gaslighting that left scars, of children taught to doubt their own worth. They offered not pity, but strategies: low contact, evidence-based confrontation, legal consultation. Each message reminded me that I wasn't trapped. I was preparing. On Saturday, I packed a blanket, some snacks, and picture books. We drove to a quiet park, away from Richard's stern gaze and Elaine's critical whispers. Under a big oak tree, I set up a makeshift tent with the blanket, creating a little reading fort. Lily and Hannah giggled, leaning into the soft glow of safety. For 2 blissful hours, we read, laughed, and pretended we were adventurers with no past and no weight on our shoulders. As I watched them, I promised myself, this is what they deserve every day. That evening, as I shared updates with my online group, one parent sent me a private message. Don't waste energy fighting them toe-to-toe. Don't argue. Let the truth speak for itself. It's stronger than you think. The words struck me like lightning. I didn't need to scream or rage. I only needed to reveal. The idea sharpened over the next week. Richard's birthday was approaching, and my parents had planned a large family brunch. Relatives, neighbors, old friends, all were invited. Perfect. A captive audience. I messaged Elaine, pretending enthusiasm. I want to do something special for Dad this year. I'll prepare a little presentation, something meaningful. She responded with a delighted heart emoji, oblivious to my intent. I reached out to a lawyer I had met through the online group. Over a long call, he explained terms like undue influence and how evidence of coercion or bias could dismantle an inheritance plan. He gave me language, powerful, undeniable words I could use without ever raising my voice. I spent nights writing a timeline of events, attaching images, messages, and clips. Each email I drafted was like a stitch pulling together a tapestry of truth. On the morning of the brunch, I packed my secret weapon, a small portable projector disguised in a gift bag. Alongside it, I carried a neatly wrapped present for Richard, a book of essays on fatherhood. One gift for show, one for revelation. My hands trembled, but my resolve didn't. Before leaving, I knelt by Lily and Hannah. Their eyes were wide with worry. "What if they get mad, Mommy?" Hannah whispered. I smoothed her hair. "I'm not going to say anything cruel. I'm just going to tell the truth. And the truth isn't mean. It's simply real." Their shoulders eased slightly. Lily hugged me tight. "We'll be brave with you." At that moment, I knew no matter what happened inside that house, I wasn't walking in as the scapegoat anymore. I was walking in as a mother armed with truth. The brunch unfolded with the usual charade. Elaine arranged pastries like jewels on silver trays. Richard sat at the head of the table beaming at his guests. Grant bragged loudly about Mason's latest achievements, while my daughters sat silently at the corner. My phone buzzed with a new message. I glanced down and froze. It was from Grant, sent to someone else but accidentally landing in the family thread. "Can't wait for Dad to see the trust paperwork. Mason's future is basically locked in. This brunch is just a victory lap." My pulse thundered in my ears. Without realizing it, he had confirmed everything, at the very moment I needed it most. I touched the gift bag at my feet, fingers brushing against the hidden projector. My time had come. The brunch began with all the rehearsed perfection my parents loved to showcase. Silver trays of pastries glistened in the morning light, pitchers of juice sparkled with condensation, and Elaine, ever the orchestrator, held her phone aloft to livestream the event. "Family is everything," she said into the camera, smiling wide as neighbors and distant relatives tuned in to admire the Cole family harmony. I sat quietly, my gift bag at my feet. The projector hummed inside like a secret heartbeat. Richard basked at the head of the table, Grant bragging about Mason's scholarship opportunities. My daughters sat silently in their corner, their small frames overshadowed by the golden glow cast around their cousin. When the chatter reached its peak, I cleared my throat. "Dad," I said, standing, voice calm but steady, "I've put together a little presentation for your birthday. Just 10 minutes. The room quieted. Richard nodded indulgently, like a king granting a peasant permission. Elaine beamed, turning her phone toward me, announcing, "See? Our Avery, always so thoughtful." I connected the projector. The first slide flickered on the wall, a family portrait where Lily and Hannah had been cropped out. Gasps echoed around the table. Next, screenshots of calendar schedules, Mason's days filled with lessons and outings, while my daughter's slots were labeled chores. Murmurs began to ripple. Then came the ring cam footage of Elaine carrying bins of toys into storage, her guilty glance caught on camera. Finally, the group chat scrolled across the screen. "Mason deserves the best space upstairs. Avery's kids are fine in the basement." A message signed by Richard himself. The air thickened. Elaine's smile faltered. Her hand shot to her phone, and she ended the live stream abruptly, her face drained of color. But too late. Several relatives whispered that they had already screen-recorded the stream. I turned to Mason, who sat pale and confused. "This is not your fault," I said gently. "You didn't ask for this. None of it is on you." His wide eyes softened, a flicker of relief crossing his face. I needed everyone to know I wasn't here to punish a child. I was here to reveal the truth. Just then, my lawyer, seated quietly in the back, rose to his feet. His voice cut through the tension. "We need to talk about undue influence and about the rights of children who are being systematically excluded." The room erupted. My father stammered, We only wanted what was best. You're twisting this." His voice cracked, and for the first time I saw uncertainty ripple through him. The evidence wasn't words in an argument. It was time-stamped, documented, undeniable. My aunts and uncles exchanged uneasy glances. One spoke up. "Richard, this isn't best. This is manipulation. This is cruelty." Heads nodded. The crowd that had once admired my parents now looked at them with suspicion, even disgust. Grant slammed his fist against the table. "You all don't understand. Mason is the future of this family. We're not wasting resources on—" His eyes darted to my girls. His voice trailed off as silence smothered him, and then, in his anger, he made the fatal mistake. "I told Dad we needed to reallocate the college fund anyway. Mason deserves the lion's share. Avery's girls will be fine without it." The words spilled out before he realized the damage. Gasps filled the room, sharper than knives. The final illusion shattered. Years of control collapsed in an instant, undone not by my rage, but by their own words. I drew in a deep breath. "My children and I will be leaving today. We need space. We need boundaries. And for now, that means no contact." My voice didn't shake. For the first time in years, I was steady, unbreakable. I gathered Lily and Hannah close, their small hands gripping mine like anchors. Relief flickered in their eyes. The chains were falling away. As we prepared to walk out, my Aunt Margaret, usually silent at gatherings, stepped forward. She pressed a small USB drive into my palm. Her hand shook as she whispered, "You need to see this. It's from 2003. It will explain everything." My heart lurched. Another secret? Another layer to unravel? The fire in my chest flared again. Whatever was on that drive, I knew it would change the game once more. The USB drive weighed in my palm like a relic. That night, after the chaos of the brunch had quieted, I sat alone in my room with only the glow of the laptop screen lighting my face. I inserted the drive, my breath shallow. Folders opened, grainy footage and documents from 20 years ago appeared. The first video began with a shaky camcorder shot, Elaine as a teenager, standing awkwardly in the shadow of her own siblings. A birthday cake sat on the table, but her slice was smaller, shoved to the side. Her father's voice echoed, "Don't pout, Elaine. Your brother deserves more. He's the one who'll carry this family's name." More clips followed. Elaine accused of mistakes she didn't make, her achievements minimized, her face blurred at the edges of family portraits. She had been the scapegoat long before I was born. Suddenly, the cruelty made sense. She wasn't inventing this dynamic. She was replaying it, unconsciously passing the same poison to me and now to my daughters. I closed the laptop slowly, stunned. Justice wasn't about punishing Elaine. It was about recognizing that she too had been broken by this cycle. But that didn't excuse what she had done. The natural consequence was clear. By repeating her parents' sins, she had driven away the very family she clung to. The next day, Richard came to me, his tone softer than I'd heard in years. "Avery, we can start over. I want to fix this. I don't want to lose you." His words trembled, but I saw the desperation underneath. He wasn't sorry for the pain. He was sorry for the exposure. I shook my head gently. "I'm not cutting you off forever, but for now, we need low contact. My girls need space to heal, and so do I." For the first time, I wasn't begging to be understood. I was drawing the line. In the weeks that followed, I wrote an essay titled, "What Favoritism Does to Kids." I posted it online, accompanied by photos, cropped family portraits beside the originals, side by side. It spread like wildfire. Messages poured in from parents, teachers, and adult children who had lived through the same scars. "Thank you for saying what I couldn't. This made me feel seen. You've given me courage to break free." Healing didn't come overnight, but little by little, the ground beneath me felt steadier. One afternoon, I signed the lease on a modest apartment with sunlight streaming through every window. That night, Lily, Hannah, and I sat cross-legged on the bare floor eating greasy pizza straight from the box. We laughed until our bellies hurt, our voices echoing through empty rooms that suddenly felt like home. Just as I was tucking them into their new beds, my phone buzzed. An email notification. Amendment to trust, request for mediation. My heart jolted. The battle wasn't over, but maybe, just maybe, it was shifting into a different form. Weeks later, I watched my daughters blossom. Lily joined her school's science club, her eyes lighting up as she explained experiments to me. Hannah started painting, filling the apartment walls with color. They were becoming whole again, unshackled from the basement shadows. I built a new family of choice. Friends from the online group, neighbors who checked in, even coworkers who brought over home-cooked meals. Slowly, I realized family wasn't about blood. It was about who showed up, who honored you, who loved without conditions. One evening, as I drafted a guide on setting boundaries with toxic relatives, I felt the words flow like a promise. I wasn't just surviving. I was teaching, sharing wisdom with anyone who needed it. Pain had turned into purpose. The phone rang unexpectedly. Richard's voice came through, fragile. "We'd like to see the girls, if you'll allow it. We'll do it your way." I paused, then spoke firmly but calmly. "We can meet, but only if every child is treated with respect. No favorites, no scapegoats. Otherwise, there's nothing to discuss." There was silence, then a quiet, "I understand." The next morning, I stood on the balcony of our apartment, dawn spreading across the sky. Lily and Hannah slept soundly in their rooms, sunlight touching their faces. I whispered to myself, "The best revenge is living true. The best victory is peace." I breathed deeply, not as a victim or a warrior, but as a mother who had reclaimed her voice, her children, and her freedom. And though the past lingered, though reconciliation might only come in fragments, I knew this. Justice had been served. Healing was underway. and in the fragile glow of a new morning, hope had finally taken root.